Hi, and welcome to Cooking with Kids. I'm Sarah, the Children Youth Services Librarian here at the Spruce Grove Public Library. In this program, you're going to meet my family, my husband Dave, and my kids, Sutherland, Montgomery, Oswald, and Theodora. Cooking with kids can sometimes be a crazy experience, but the memories they make and the hands-on learning that they take away from being involved in food prep and build a foundation for healthy eating habits. So more tips and suggestions for this can be found at Canada's Food Guide online. So enjoy the show.
Hi there everybody. Today we're going to do a vegetarian supper.
Yeah.
Today we're going to do some baked potato chips.
Yeah.
Zucchini cutlets,
Yeah.
and some mushrooms and garlic,
Yeah.
butter, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So first thing we're going to do, whenever you're cooking something, it's nice to figure out how long things cook, what's going to take longest, so then you can plan out your kind of cooking period so it's kind of as short as possible. So the thing that's going to take the longest today is the potatoes. They take about 20 minutes on 425 degrees.
Yeah.
And so we'll slice them up thin first. We're going to season them with a little bit of salt and some Cajun spice, and then we'll do the zucchini cutlets after. So first thing we do is wash the potatoes, and then we just thinly slice them.
Yeah.
Always keep your fingers tucked away so they don't move too much on you.
Yeah.
And so you don't catch them and cut them. Another trick, if one of your kids is wanting to do some cutting of the potatoes, is you can just make it more stable by cutting off an end, and then you use that to hold it nice and flat so it doesn't move on you. They end up coming out just a little bit different looking, in that they have a flat edge, but it's a lot safer for the kids to chop things.
Yeah.
Right, Theo?
Oh.
This is my little helper today. Her name's Theo.
And this is my little big helper today. It's named Daddy.
Thank you. So what we're going to do is when the potatoes are sliced, we're just going to lay them out on the pan here so they're kind of
And
overlapping
these
each
are
other a little bit.
potato chips.
And the longer you cook them, the crispier they get.
Yeah.
We kind of have them a little bit crisp, but not too much. And so they're kind of like a homemade French fry or a chip. We still usually like to dip them in ketchup. And depending on your size of potatoes is how many it takes to fill the pan. But this is usually a pretty good size serving here for a family of 4-5 people.
No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
That's how many's in our family, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not 5.
I know. But it works for us.
Okay.
You can use whatever type of potato you want. Rosettes, or some red potatoes, or russets would be the white ones. Depends on what you like.
Yeah.
We're still feeding off of our garden veg that we had this year.
Yeah.
So,
And
using whatever we got.
And my watermelons died.
Yeah, your watermelons did die. We decided it was a good idea to try to grow some watermelons this year. Not because we thought they would grow, but because they're just fun. And we planted them pretty late, so our watermelons look more like berries.
Yeah.
Be careful not to over-season them. I just like putting a little bit on. So, just a very light amount of salt or pepper. This is seasoning salt. I'm just about out of it. So that ends up with just a tiny bit on it, almost nothing. And then, just because my kids started liking a little more spice and things like that, a nice way to use them into that is something like a Cajun spice or seasoning. Anyways. And it looks like it's a little heavy here, but it's actually not a very strong seasoning. So it has a combination of all sorts of spices in it. So, but even just a light salt and pepper would be really nice as well. So then you take that and you put it in the oven at 425 degrees for about 10 minutes, and then you flip it, kind of the exact same way you would do French fries if they're from the store. Alright, next thing we're going to do is some zucchini cutlets. Now, this is a recipe that, has some room for variation, depending on what you have in your cupboard, things like that. This time of year, we like to do this one as it is a great way to use zucchinis that we had from the garden. You can do it any year, as you can get zucchinis in the from the store.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm doing my dad.
depending on what you're cooking with zucchini, a nice way to get the seeds out here, you slice it in half and then you just use a spoon to remove the seeds. So then you just use kind of the coarse cheese grating end. And you just kind of go back and forth, do your thing. Whatever your favorite method is. We're just shredding it into little bits. We'll do some carrot as well.
Yeah.
Here you go, you can grate some more. I'll get the...
How do I grate?
Yeah, hold it up like this. You can either do it skin side or whichever. And then you just slide it up and down. Okay? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, take your time. You use this hand to push down to hold it so it doesn't move, okay? Yeah, there you go. Now another thing that is really nice in zucchini cutlets is some onions, some carrots, a pepper. This is just a bell pepper. It's not hot even though it's red. That's just because we like to put a little bit of different colors in so it looks pretty. You'll want a little bit of salt and pepper. And a kind of interesting thing for this recipe is you get a little sack of soda crackers and you're going to smash them up, alright? So to start off with, for smashing them, instead of opening them up and trying to break them, it works really good if you just leave it sealed up and you start to smash and grate and crush it to bits. So, they crush super easy like that, and then you can open them up afterwards. And dump it out. Another thing we're going to use in them is some flour. Alright. So all the zucchini is now grated. We need about 3 cups of it.
Yeah.
Okay, can you dump that in?
Okay.
Dump it in. There's 1 cup. Let's get 2, wait, here's 2 cups. And just wait, I think what we got here is basically what we need, so that's 3 cups. So if you're getting zucchini from the store, that's probably about 2 of the smaller zucchinis that you get from there. If you're growing in your garden, it just depends on how they grow, because you can get really big ones or smaller ones, so you can have yellow zucchini, green zucchini, whatever you want.
Is it time for that?
No flour quite yet. So we just did that with the zucchini, so we got 3 cups of zucchini. Next thing we need to do is get some carrots. So we need about half a cup of carrots. If I recall.
Can I put
And we're going to do the same thing with them. We're just going to grate them.
And I'm going to get them to Daddy.
Okay. And there we have our carrot, all grated up here. Here, excuse me. Okay.
Okay.
We need about half a cup. Once again, it doesn't have to be exact. If you grated a whole cup or whatever, then it's fine. It just depends on the flavor. That's about 3/4 of a cup there.
I'm going to put it in.
Yeah, put it in.
Sure.
And next we're going to put our pepper in. So we're going to do that. It asks for about 1/4 cup, but once again, it just depends on what you want flavor-wise. So you slice it in half, pull out the core. And you could do this numerous ways. You could chop it up really finely. You could grate it again. Peppers are going to grate kind of funny because the skin is a little bit thicker. So we're actually just going to use, we have a little hand crank food processor here.
Are we going to grate it on this one?
No, we're going to chop it up in here. So we're just going to chop it down to slightly smaller bits.
This one.
And then we crank it. And you spin it around.
It's very fast.
And as they'd say on an infomercial, bam, look at that. All chopped up.
And oh no.
So we add that half of a pepper. Once again, these are sweet peppers, not spicy. So do with what you will. We're going to do the same thing with an onion. We want about half a cup of onion. Oh, that's
Can I put these in?
the timer on our peppers there, or on our, that's the timer on our potatoes. So we better go flip those. Just before we do, we'll put these onions in.
Can I put
Yeah, go ahead, throw it in.
these two?
So we're just chopping them up a little bit here. You can do the greens too, or even just green onions, it really doesn't matter. And we're going to chop up these onions just before we go and flip the potatoes. Alright, here we are taking a quick break from making our zucchini cutlets. And just got to flip the potatoes here. So we don't season the other side. Doesn't really make a difference if you spread them out perfect or not. And as we did 10 minutes on the one side, we'll do about another 10 minutes on this side. If you want it to go a little bit longer to get them crispier, things like that, then feel free. It's not set in stone. It really just kind of depends on what you're making. Alright, so back to the zucchini cutlets. Go ahead and dump those in. That's our onions. So we have some onions, peppers. We used a red pepper, but just a bell pepper of any variety. Carrot, zucchini. We put in some soda crackers earlier on. All smashed up. So next thing we need is a 1/4 cup of flour.
Yeah.
Kind of just helps to glue them together.
Can I do some?
Yeah, go ahead and dump that in.
Can I put it in more?
Nope, that's it. And then we put in just a little bit of baking powder. You can or cannot do this. It really doesn't matter. We just like to add one in.
Dad, can I do some more?
Nope, no more flour. Next thing we need is a couple of eggs.
Can I do the eggs?
So you can, but you need to crack them in here, okay? In case there's a shell gets in, okay?
Okay.
Okay, whoop. And now split it apart. Drop it in. Nice job. I mostly got in there.
Yeah.
Good job. There we go. Oh, here, drop them in. Put this in the
Now
garbage.
my hand.
Okay, and we just double check for seeds. No seeds. And we just plop them in.
I wanted to plop them in.
No. Can you do me a favor? Can you squish all this together with your hands?
What? Oh, that
Yeah,
is
squish. Yeah, mix it up with your hands.
I'm squishing all of it.
Nope, not too much. Yeah, take your time. Okay, squish it all together.
You
Yeah,
got my
keep
hand.
squishing.
My hand.
Mix it up.
Okay, let me do it again.
How about we both do it? So mix it all together, and you're gonna let it sit for a few minutes, just so the crackers get all the juice sucked up in them.
You need this more.
Okay, I'm just pulling up the bottom, and then you can keep mixing. Okay. Really good for getting your hands all gooey.
Cool.
And one other thing we add a little bit here before we are done mixing is a little bit of salt. You can just use some table salt.
And now I'm mixing it on.
Or some pepper. Okay, move your hands. But you can season it to your taste. Okay, keep mixing there. Mix in that salt and pepper.
And I have some on my hands.
Yeah. Oh no, it all went flying. Keep it in. Alright, so here we are. We're going to cook the zucchini cutlets. So you get your pan warm.
Yeah.
We're going to put a little bit of oil in. You can use olive oil or canola oil. Doesn't much matter. Depends on your personal preference. Some people like to use coconut oil nowadays. So we're going to get our zucchini cutlets going, and then we're actually going to start our mushrooms here as well. We're going to do some mushrooms with just a little bit of garlic and butter and a little bit of salt. So the cutlets, you kind of grab a handful, kind of like you would ground beef,
Can I do it?
and you smush them into like a little pancake. Yeah, for sure, Theo. Yeah, a little bit bigger than that. A little bit bigger.
Dad.
There you go. Yeah, splat it down. Here. Smush it down over there. There you go. We don't want too many little bits. And we're cooking these on medium heat, maybe a little bit higher than that. There we go. So we got our first batch of zucchini cutlets going there. There you go. Yep.
Yes, if this one hot. Oh,
Yeah,
it
it's
is
pretty
hot
warm.
in
Yeah, it's nice and warm. So next thing we're going to do is our mushrooms. We're going to throw a bit of butter or margarine in. You do throw a little bit of a heavy amount in because you're kind of also steaming the mushrooms with. And when I do these with mushrooms, I usually tend to keep them whole. We wash them off so they're nice and clean. Some people like to peel the mushrooms, do all sorts of weird things. It's up to you, whatever you feel comfortable with. And And when we do the mushrooms here, you try to keep them so there's a bit of a meaty texture to them. You don't want them too soggy. So we'll let the butter melt and we'll just check on our cutlets here. Looks like the first batch is ready to flip. And that's our timer for our potatoes coming up shortly. So if you time things right, everything should basically be done in a very similar time. That way something's not getting cold while you're waiting to serve up the food. So there's your cutlets. And we'll check these here. Alright. So our butter's melted on our mushrooms here and getting nice and warm. So now we're going to just throw in the mushrooms.
Yeah.
And we're going to cover them up a little bit so they kind of steam. Soften up. I tend to do this exact same thing with asparagus, beans, all sorts of things, but when you're doing those, you'd want to put just a little bit of water in to steam them in, and then drain them off, and then add the butter and the garlic and the salt. But it's a nice way of prepping some veggies. That's really nice and simple, quick and easy. Alright, Theo, let's take a look here soon and see if these zucchini cutlets are going to be done. Okay?
When are we going to put these on?
They're just about there. About another minute. Okay? Now the mushrooms you can stir up. Make sure they get a bit of butter on all different sides. Alright, so our first batch of zucchini cutlets are done. They're a little bit brown on both sides. They've had time to cook. They really don't take very long. So that's it for our batter. It makes about a dozen, maybe a couple more than that, depending on how big you make them. Wash up. So now we're back to the mushrooms. Our second batch of cutlets is on to cook here. It makes about a dozen or so. I'm just going to crack some dried garlic into it. You can use fresh garlic too, but it is kind of the highlight of the veggies. And I like to put a little bit of pepper and a little bit of salt in as well. Alright.
Now I can do my band.
So it's cooking quite nicely. You don't need to have them too hot now. Once the garlic's in.
You can dance on, you can dance mailbox and the tree. You can dance, you can dance.
Are those zucchini cutlets done, do you think, Theo?
I think.
Okay, so now we're just going to let these mushrooms cook here a little bit longer in the butter and garlic and salt. A little bit of pepper. We're going to check the cutlets. See how they're doing. Looks like they're getting brown here, so we'll flip them off. And in about 2 minutes, everything will be done. The mushrooms, the last batch of zucchini cutlets, and the potatoes. So then we'll serve it up, and yeah, then we'll have our kind of veggie supper. That, depending on what you like I said, substitute this for other greens. You know what? Most kids really like cold vegetables, carrots, cucumbers, things like that. Things that they can just pick and choose. Kind of what's their favorite.
Hello, everybody. Bye-bye.
Not bye-bye yet.
Oh.
So here we have our zucchini cutlets,
Yeah.
our mushrooms in garlic with a little salt and pepper and butter,
Yeah.
and our potatoes here.
Yeah.
Like I said, these are kind of a nice way of doing homemade fries.
Yeah, and I'm drinking
That sort of thing.
water.
They can get nice and crispy, or you can have them a little bit softer. It just depends what you want. Tastes good dipped in some ketchup or just eating them as is. Remember, we put a little bit of Cajun seasoning on, just as my kids are liking it at the moment.
Yeah,
These mushrooms are nice and toasty.
Yeah, bro.
They're quite fleshy still.
Dun, dun,
And of course the
dun,
zucchini cutlet. And here's our plate.
Mhm.
The mushrooms are still nice and fairly firm, but still soft.
Yeah.
And the cutlets are nice and warm and cooked inside.
Yeah.
And there we have it. There's our veggie supper.
Thank Thank you for watching Cooking with Kids, brought to you by the Spruce Grove Public Library. We hope that you enjoyed this recipe and are inspired to try it yourself at home. To celebrate this new virtual program, we will be hosting a Kids Kitchen Challenge. We're asking the young chefs of Spruce Grove to send us a photo of them preparing a family favorite recipe or any recipe of your choice. All participants will be entered into the grand prize draw. More details can be found on our library website at sgpl.ca/programs/kitchen-challenge. New videos will drop here on Facebook every 2 weeks throughout the fall, so join us again soon for more tasty makes. Stay safe and have fun in the kitchen.